Good morning, everybody. Thanks for coming. This is Building High-Functioning Teams, Distributed Agile Teams. So I will do a quick intro. I'm going to try to get through all these slides and we will definitely do a Q&A at the end. But if you have questions in the middle, feel free to ask them. I know we've got people online, and Colleen's going to monitor that, and she'll let me know if we have something pop up in there. But I will make sure we have time at the end to talk about things. Really quickly about myself, my name is Tommy Norman. I am the Chief Agility Officer at Ackland Avenue. We do custom software development with fully formed Agile teams and individual contributors. We have a booth if you want to learn more about that. You also have a nice little notebook that has our logo on it right there, so you're writing notes with us right now. I've been doing this for a long time, over 30 years, been in software development. I had to share, I don't see Judo in there. We had to do that sharing thing this morning. The thing I shared was that I went to school to be a pilot, and I wasn't a very good pilot. I almost crashed a plane twice, very close. So then I got into this, and everybody's much safer for it. But I've been doing this for a long time. As you can see, I've got all the certifications, the blah, blah, blah. That means anything. I also run the Agile. So we have Agile Austin. I am very jealous of the community they've got here and how organized it is. I run the Nashville version of that. It is a much smaller thing, mainly because I'm lazy. But we have a very small group that we meet every month. So if you're ever in Nashville, agilenashville.com, sign up there. I also run a conference there, very similar to here, called Music City Agile. It's part of a larger conference called Music City Tech. We have Music City Code, Music City Data, and Music City Agile all together. We haven't run in a couple of years, but next year we will be back, and that will be sometime in the fall. And then lastly, if you like what you hear and your company has either Safari Books Online or O'Reilly Learning Online, if you've already got a subscription to that, I've got a ton of videos on there. So I have some pre-recorded ones about Scrum and Scrum fundamentals. I've got some advanced stuff, product ownership, lean principles for Scrum. I also do a lot of their live training as well. And if you have a subscription to that, it's all free. And I'll have links to all of this stuff at the end. So enough about that. I have to confess, I don't particularly like remote teams. I like having my people in a room. I'm a social person. I'm a social coder. I like having everybody in there. You know, the war room, I loved war rooms. That was one of my favorite things. But the reality is that's not the world we live in. And the company I work for now, Ackland, is completely distributed. We are 100% remote. We have a small little office in Nashville, and that's about it. It only fits 2 people. Everybody else is all over the world. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. So I've also worked in lots of different places. So I've done the 100% remote like I'm doing now. I've also done 100% co-located. We've all done that for some period of time. I've done the part-time remote where we have a liberal work from home policy and all versions in between. And I've been lucky enough to be a consultant and also a leader at different companies where I also got to experiment and have all those different ones in the same place and see how well did this team do and how well did that team do. And so a lot of this kind of culminates of all of this time of reluctantly working remote. And then we are very successful with that. We've been very happy with how that's worked out. We have very high functioning teams that some of them have never met each other, have never seen each other before in person, and been very successful with keeping those teams happy and keeping our clients happy. So let's talk about what I'm not going to talk about. I'm not going to talk about tactics. So we're not going to go, oh my God, everybody, you need to put your cameras on and you need to make sure you have a headset. We're not going to talk about those tactics. That stuff, you've seen tons of articles about that. If you want to talk about them, I'll stick around later when you talk about those types of things. But I don't want to cover that because I think we know that by now. What I want to talk about is a strategy as a company. So as a company, if you are doing remote and distributed work, whether it's 100% remote or a hybrid model, you are doing it for a reason. And hopefully you're doing a reason in a way that it is keeping everybody happy, clients happy, customers happy, and in a way that brings value to your company. So let's talk about what are the benefits of a distributed team or being remote. This is the interaction period. What are the benefits? Why would I do this? And I don't want to hear individual. I don't care about you. The company. I do care about you. But why as a company would I do it? I can get the best talent because it doesn't matter where they are. Okay? Why else? And possible increased productivity. I like that possible because we're going to come back to that in a minute.
Work-life balance.
Work-life balance, but that again, that is happy clients. Yes, sir. Reduced expenses, absolutely. So you guys set me up great. Cost savings, You know, I don't have to buy these expensive locations and all of these things. I can get a little bit more creative with that. We can find the best talent, doesn't matter where they are. Employee retention. So, you know, this has now kind of almost become table stakes. So people want this kind of work-life balance, and we can attract people and keep people that way. And then productivity increase. But I want to question that. Possible. You said possible. Why did you say possible?
Well, I work for General Motors, and we're doing the hybrid approach now. So, as you may have heard in the news, they're talking about having us to come back into the office. So many of the employees are like, but I am producing so much more at home. Why should I come to the office when that may not be the case? So I use the word possible because right now that's the debate.
So let's talk about that. So, oops. Oh, that's where I want to go. So we all know the Agile Manifesto, the principles there, individual interactions over process and tools, and the best type of communication is face-to-face communication. And it's not face-to-face communication over video because most of that is you're on mute. Or put your camera on. Or excuse me while I have to take my dog out, or my kid walks in. So we know this is something that's kind of intrinsic in Agile teams. And when you think about it, we've also seen this before a lot of times of what is the best type of communication. The best type of communication, you and I in a room with a whiteboard drawing out what we're doing or in some type of display. And what's the worst? Putting it down. You know, not even just paper, just even writing it down is the worst way. And all the different warmness in between there. So we've seen this, we know this. And when you're sitting there talking about, I am more productive from home, to your point, I am more productive from home does not equal our teams deliver more value remotely. Those are two separate things. And productivity, that's an ambiguous word. Everybody thinks, you know, that's like inconceivable. You keep using that word productivity, but I don't think you know what it means. And of course, if I want to work from home, and believe me, I do like working from home. I like the work-life balance and things like that. You know, there are definitely things I could say, well, I was more productive today. Well, what did you do that actually kind of moved the needle as a company? Well, I don't know about that, but I took a walk. I took a nap and I played with my dog and I have this work-life balance. And that's great. And it's a happy employee. But what does it really do for moving the needle forward as far as productivity as a team and as a company? So if you think about it, you can't convince me. You just will never convince me that if I took a team and distributed them versus the exact same team, take everything equal. I know there's a whole bunch of stuff outside, but the exact same environment, exact same team, put them in a room, who's going to be a more collaborative team? One in the room, just is. And I just want us to admit that. It's okay to admit that. But we're willing to trade what I get here for some of those other things. That's okay. But I just don't, I hate it when I see these articles of you're actually better when you're not. You're like, no, you're not. Not in certain things. Maybe you're cooperative, where you and I agree on something and then we go away and work on something, and then I can by myself be a lot more productive. But collaborative, where if you and I are doing something that it requires a lot of interaction, a lot of sharing of information. That's where we have to have all these processes and tools. Oh, there's all these great whiteboard things and Miro and blah, blah, blah. Okay, but I'm now getting into process and tools over individuals' interactions. I'm doing it to try to get back to individuals' interactions, but it's still at the sacrifice of that. Let's just admit that. We know that. That's okay. And it's okay that that happens. So why are companies currently doing this? The main two right there. Because they're all scared to death, because now everybody, when the pandemic happened, everybody's like, everybody can work from home. And so now everybody's reluctant to go back. And people are refusing to go back. And so now companies feel like they have to do this. It's almost like they are being forced to do this. And that's the bad part of what I'm seeing right now. Because what you're getting is people doing this out of fear. A company is doing a remote strategy out of fear because they can't attract talent and they're losing talent to other people who are remote. And if you weren't a company who was this before, and this is why you do it, then you're doing a half-assed remote strategy. Because you're saying all the remote things, but you're thinking, all I need is one person to screw up and prove me right, and I can bring everybody back in. That's what they're waiting on. You just said it. They said, how many companies, we'll see, how many people have experienced this by the smiles and nods I get. Don't worry, we're never coming back in the office. And a couple of weeks later, all right, just one day back in the office, that's all we're going to ask. 2 days max, maybe 3, at most 4, but probably 5. And then suddenly you're like, son of a bitch, I'm back in the office. So that's what I'm talking about, is this, I'm kind of just, I've got my toe in it, and I'm just waiting for the second when I can pull it out. And that's where we're seeing the most trouble with this. So what I want to talk about is, how do we come up with a good remote strategy as a company, as an organization? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk a lot about my experience, but I'm going to kind of give this advice and then tell you stories. Because we talked about this morning with Melissa, we talked about stories is the way I like to convey things. So first of all is, you have to make sure your company strategy includes remote strategy. That some part of what you think makes you as good a company includes whatever your remote option is going to be. If not, it's always kind of this thing that you feel is being forced on you. So at my company, like I said, we've never been anything else. We've always been 100% remote. And we're all over the globe. I think, what is it, 19 countries, 18 countries, something like that. 18 countries. As I said, some of these people have never met each other. Now again, part of me goes, oh my God, I hate that. Because I'll sit there on Slack watching an hour-long Slack conversation saying, if we were all in the same room, that would have taken 5 minutes. But it is part of our strategy. What is that? How does that map to our strategy? One thing at Ackland we believe is long-running teams. I keep them together. But I sell them as a service, so I'm charging for them. And when you pay me money, it's how I can pay them. What happens when they're on the bench? Well, I found if we can, and this was a totally accident for us. It's not like we said, ooh, let's find people we can pay less money. We actually had one of our founders went on a mission to Honduras, fell in love and got married, moved down there, and found all these great universities, these tech universities that were cranking out great developers. And we started hiring them. And the economics allowed us to where we could keep them as a team together. And even when they rolled off, we could keep them on as a team together and move them to the next one. They might be on the bench for a couple of months. And that was okay because of the economics for it. And then we could also be a little bit cheaper in what we would offer. Not, well, I'm not talking like bargain basement cheap, like Target. Good deal. That's a good deal. Not Macy's, Target. And so that is part of our strategy, is I want to keep teams together. I want long-running teams. I believe that once they've gotten through forming, storming, norming, performing, and they're there, that they are a much better team than if I just go and grab a bunch of people. I jokingly will say, I'd rather work with this group of people than with the best developers out there. But it's true. I've been on teams where like, oh, we're about to go on a mobile project. Do we need to go hire all the mobile experts? I'm like, no. My team can probably get there. Unless it's a technology that's way out of our space, we might bring in 1 or 2 individuals. But we should be able to do this. So the next thing is, make it a first-class citizen. Don't just say it, think it. One of the ways we make it a first-class citizen is, one of the first things you learn when you do your onboarding is a class on how to be a good remote person. And it's all the tactics and stuff like that and things like, of those natures, and how we use communication, and how we, getting a good headset. And if you don't have a good headset, we'll buy one and send it to you. We have all these things. So it is the first thing when you come on board is I teach you how to do that, because that's what we do. We're 100% remote. So it's part of just our DNA and the onboarding strategy that we do, period. So just build it as part of what you offer. Next, focus on outcomes. Don't get into the micromanaging part, because that's like, oh, they're at home. And he just said he was taking naps and playing with his dog and stuff like that. He's not doing the stuff I want him to do. So I need to put stuff on his computer, and I need to have, we used to have a company where they wanted us to all be on camera all day. And so managers could pop in and see us when we're doing that. Not the company I'm at now. Because they were worried. They didn't trust us. But we have to trust it and say, listen, we're getting the things done we need to get done. And so this is what we do. We're very much a Kanban shop. We can still do Scrum every now and then, but we're a Kanban shop. We focus on the ideas of what people want. We get the teams focused on that. Cards on the board are incremental pieces of value. We focus on delivering that and giving value to our clients. That's what I'm focused on. And I have tons of metrics of cycle time and throughput, error. I'm a metrics nerd. I love this. We have a great dashboard. But I don't really show that. That's for the teams. That's for the teams for continuous improvement. The 2 main things that we in executive leadership look at is team happiness and client happiness. And that's part of our DNA too. The best place to write custom software development is one of our main tenets. And what does that mean? 100% happy clients, 100% happy employees. That is our goal. So how we get there, I give a lot of autonomy to the teams. And if the client is happy, if they're getting the value they need, that's working. Why do I need to do that? That's for you. That's for you as a team. And if I don't worry about that, then I'm not worried about, oh, did you make up those 3 hours when you took your kid to the park? Did you make those 3 hours up? I don't care. Your team should be surrounding you and supporting you and things like that when you need to do that kind of stuff. So we focus on outcomes. One of the ways we do that is we also make sure that the team and the client share success. So we do things like when we do our discoveries, we do product visioning and persona mapping and things like that. And the entire team's involved in that. I want to know why and who before I start with the what and the how. Because then it's about solving the problem for the client. We also, how's this going to make you money? We do a whole exercise where we're like, well, this thing I'm about to bill you, how does it make you money? How does it bring in value into your company? And giving us that. And by doing that, it makes the outcome part a lot easier. Because we know this is what we're trying to achieve for our client at the end. And it's okay if it changes, because it does change. And we pivot with the company. We don't have such a thing as scope creep. If you want to change your mind, we put that on the backlog. We take a look at what it does to the release plan. Does that look good to you? All right, let's do that. Okay, whatever makes value for you. The other thing is, we do still get together. When it makes sense, we bring everybody together. Now, with the pandemic, that got a lot harder. But normally what we were doing, and we're getting back into these patterns, is there was specific budgets set aside. So we have, we're more of a Spotify model. So if you've heard of Spotify model, we have guilds, which are basically our departments. They have a budget where if I want to get all the QA people together, I can get all the QA people together every now and then. There's also for each location. So even though we're spread across the world, we have certain little locations, especially in Honduras, we have little groups, and we're like, all right, there's money in the budget just to get those, you're already together, so just get together. Now you may be on separate teams, you may be in separate disciplines, but you're together and it's just easy to get together as much as you can. And then there's budget for teams. So there's budget for them to, at least once a quarter, have some activity like that. And we also do what we call Camp Ackland, which is where our aim is twice a year, and we haven't been able to do that for a couple of years now, but twice a year we get everybody together. Does it cost a lot of money? Yeah, it does. But we also, we do things like, we'll go into Honduras, and Honduras does a lot of missions. So they have a lot of these, big areas where the missionaries come in and they sleep in bunks and stuff like that. And, a lot of people are like, I have to sleep in a bunk? Yeah, because it's cheap and I can get everybody in there. So yeah, let's do that. Let's find creative ways to get everybody together so that I can actually meet and see people. So that's all about team building. And that is, that is the biggest complaint. So this is something you see, it's not news to everybody. I asked everybody before I came here about, what are your biggest things? And the biggest thing they said that they don't like about it is not being seeable, not to hug and high five and see people and interact with them. So we still try to do that when we can. But it's more about team building. We probably do more of this about team building than getting everybody together for some business purpose. We'll do some training and stuff like that every now and then, but it's not about business. It's about maximizing that time for team building. And then we do try to do it for certain things like an engagement kickoff. We're about to start with a client. That client is part of our team. We want them to know everybody on their team. And so we try to bring as many people from the team up. Sometimes the clients have actually gone down to Honduras and visited their team there. But try to get them to know there. We think that's a very critical time when we're learning about you and why we're doing this for you. That's a critical time. So those things that we think are the most important, which we think making sure the team is tight and is working together very well is important and has those relationships, and then how we start with a client. And if we have a long-running client, we might do this again in 6 months. If they have a big release and we're about to start a new project, we'll do this again. And there is budget. There is budget that is not what we cut. So when budget cuts come, these are one of the last things we try to cut. The other thing is trust your teams. Just trust them. And I get this. I was a trust but verify guy for a long time. I don't trust anyone. I don't walk on the stairs in front of my girlfriend. I don't trust her. But you have to. And this is a quote. When I told you, I asked my team, give me some stuff. I want to have some good quotes. I can do it there. And this is the best one. Teddy, one of our QA guys, now he's become a Scrum Master, said just the individual trust you have in us. And we weren't always that way. We used to have this very liberal policy, and it did get abused. And then the knee-jerk reaction to that is we then did not have a liberal policy. We had a little Slack channel where you had to go and say, I'm going to be gone for 3 hours. And the little Slack robot would go, and then it would tell you, when are you going to make up those 3 hours and all this stuff. And we killed that in a month. We're like, that was stupid. That does not show any trust. But that was also, we got rid of people who didn't work well this way. We found out how to hire better for this way. people who did this. I have a guy, Fernando, he's a UX guy, and I worked with him for 3 months before I found out he was in Spain. He wasn't even in Honduras. He was 6 hours away from me, and I didn't know it because he never complained. He never said, can we do this at different times or whatever. He was always there. He always has work done. I had no idea until I tried to fly him to a client, and I'm like, oh, I'll book your flight from Honduras. He's like, I'm not in Honduras. I was like, what? And he is now kind of my go-to. I'm like, when somebody says, can I move to Bora Bora? I'm like, sure, if you can be Fernando. He's my bar. But it's because I trust him. I trust Fernando all the time to get his work done because he does. He's a great team member. So these are things that we're putting in place. And again, these practices about tools and stuff like that, it is important, but it doesn't matter squat if you don't have the culture around it. If the culture around it is not supporting this, it doesn't matter. It's just, we've seen this with Agile. What happens if your Scrum team gets really good at Scrum, but nobody else is doing it? It's like a machine that one wheel is at one cog and it's spinning like this, and that meets another cog over here that's not running, and then it just friction. And so I'm lucky in that where I'm at now, we don't have a lot of that. We have some, we still do. But because we were born remote, we have less of that. But I have worked plenty of places. You may have heard of LeanKit, which is an online Kanban board. I worked there. They were in Nashville for a while before they got bought. And we had every imaginable combination of team you could have. Completely located, completely remote, hybrid ones and things like that. And so I've worked in environments where I had to kind of find the best breed of those. And I will tell you the hybrid one is the worst one. It sucks. So like, if like you're the one remote guy, the rest of us in a room, but we can't talk to you. That's the advice they say. Everybody treat like you're remote. So you and I have to sit there with the computer, and I can't talk to you. I think we should do this. Nope, we got to act like we're remote because of this one guy. It is the worst one. So I am a big fan of, if you're going to be remote, be remote. Just be remote. And when you get together, don't make it arbitrary. That's another thing. We're like, everybody come in on Mondays. Why? Well, Mondays are good days. Maybe they are. And that's different per team. And why are you getting together? That's why when you do get together, do it intentional about what you're doing. Not about the time of day or anything like that. That just seems random to me. So, I want to stop here and ask some questions. Where are we at on time? Okay, good. So, I just threw kind of some high-level stuff, but I wanted to hear your struggles. What are you guys struggling with remote teams? If we got questions online, Colleen will get them. But who's got one now? Yes, ma'am. Mm-hmm. Sure. So to repeat the question for those online, it's about time zones when you have very far away time zones. So I will give you one answer that's a great answer, but it's great for the company, not great for everybody else, is what we do right now is the central time zone is our time zone. Most of our clients are right around central time zone, or at least, somewhere in the States, because that's where most of our clients are. The bulk of our people are in Latin America, so they're the same thing. They're only a couple hours here and there. We do have some people in Nigeria, we have some people in India and things like that. And unfortunately, because we are highly collaborative, this is the time zone we work. Now, when we're doing staff aug, like if I'm just, you're a client and I'm not necessarily giving you a team and I'm giving you a person, then you work that out with them. But if you're on a team, we have what we call collaborative hours. And each team with their client figures out what their maximum hours of collaboration are, and that's what it is. It's usually around central time zone, pushed around there somewhere, but that's just what we work. And like I said, so Fernando is a perfect example of someone who he has to kind of work, late into the night. And he just does that. We hired another person and he moved to where Fernando lived. He did not like working at because he had another job. That's the other thing he did. And he was somebody we found did not work very well in this environment because he just wasn't willing to do that. And that's perfectly acceptable, but that's just what we've done for this company. The other one I've seen is some people like a 24-hour cycle. I don't like it, because that's where I can work all day in a U.S. time zone, then I can hand it off to someone over in another time zone and they work on it. I've seen it work, but it's a certain type of work works that way. Like when you see all these studies that talk about work from home, if you ever actually go read those studies, because I did a lot of research and it's like, all right, this one says work from home works great. But then I go, it's a call center. I'm like, well, that's not knowledge work. That's not the same type of work. That's not collaborative work. Cooperative work, you can hand over and say, all right, here's exactly what you need to do, go do it. And then you're going to come back and give it to me. That kind of relay race stuff works. But very collaborative product development, the kind of stuff we do, doesn't work that way. So that's what we do. So that's kind of an answer and a non-answer at the same time. Yes, sir.
How can I, not having a consistent teams, not having consistent teams, have a team consistently throughout the project, throughout the program, right? Keep on either people resigning or moving to other projects, not having a consistent team where, perform the same
Right.
stuff.
So the question is about consistent teams, teams that are 100% dedicated and they're not wandering off different things. So you mentioned two things, one I control and one I can't. So I can control pulling people on and off projects. That is self-inflicted. So usually when I see companies are doing that, they're trying to maximize individual capacity. Oh, you're the only person who knows this language, and I need that across 3 teams. So you're 25% on this, 25%, and 25% on this. And what does that mean? When I ask you a question, you got a minute? No, I have 20 seconds because that's 25%. That's what you get. That's not how it works. And so, one, we just made a decision of our teams are dedicated that way. Now, we do have some shared people, but remember we're in the Spotify model. They're only shared across the 3 teams in their tribe. So they're all working with the same people. That way they don't have to worry about calendars across a bazillion different things. But that was an intentional organizational decision we made. Now, what I would advise if you're not that way, like I said, we're more Kanban than anything else. And I would go on more Kanban because if you're in Scrum, you kind of put that arbitrary time box on it, and that rules everything. That's the heartbeat, the sprint. But then I have to fit everything in there. And if people are wandering in and out of the sprint, that's what becomes hard. Now, if you go to Lean, which is just, all right, Lean doesn't say you have to have teams all together. I can hand something off. It talks about, okay, this handoff, that's what I need to maximize. And you look at the whole value stream about where am I getting stuck? And you try to maximize that. Now, the best way to maximize that, put all those people in the same team, 100%. Not everybody can do that. So I think if you can't do that, one, I would say, sure you can. All you have to do is you have to die and pay taxes. Everything else is self-inflicted. If organizationally you can't manage that change, then I would probably switch to more of a Kanban model. I would be very deliberate about the metrics I get, because sometimes if I can't make that decision, I can, with good metrics, I can inform the people who are making that decision how bad a decision it is. I can show them the impact of this. Listen, I can show you where work is just sitting. Like having wait lanes in your Kanban is a perfect place to say, work just sat here. Why? Because that guy was on another team helping them and I had to wait for him. So all those dependencies are waste. So sometimes if you can't get rid of that waste, the best thing is to say, like, know your run rate of your team. Like, hey, every time something sits in this lane, it costs me $1,000 a day. And it's been sitting here in 5 days. This is costing me $5,000. That changes a lot of conversations. So that would be my advice on that one. Other questions? Yes, sir.
So unplanned conversations, those are always very valuable. I found just the break room, the hallway, the elevator, etc. Well, I'm experimenting with ways to recreate that for team members. We don't have this kind of culture you described where there's a regular get-together every year or whatever. What have you done, and what have you tried things in this area to create that remotely? We've
tried various ones with varying rates of success and failure. And I've done it multiple places. It's a little bit easier here because we've never done anything else. So it's not like if you went from being together and then you weren't, you have something to lament. If you've never had that, then it's a little bit easier. You're still missing it, but you didn't know you were missing it. We do all the things you'll hear. We have Slack channels that are for frivolous thing. We have a Get Up and Go channel where we have a little exercise lady, and she loves exercise. So she'll go on the Get Up and Go and say, get up and do some exercise and tell me what you did, and people will do that. I subscribed to that channel for about 5 days, and I'm like, I am obviously not that guy. But then we started one that was, we have a movie channel, we have that. So we have a lot of those things. We do the virtual happy hours, we do those kind of things. There are people who are just not going to dig that. It's just not going to be their thing. You're always trying to emulate a thing that is just, it's in person. All the people in TV land or internet land, they're just not getting the same thing. Hopefully they're getting some value. It's just not the same, and it never will be. And that's one thing, is that just understand it won't be. That's the thing, we have to give up that ghost. You can get as close as you can, and I do think that the team building, so like I told you, a lot of times people say, come in the building for something about the company. Come in the building when we're going to do an all hands, or come in the building when we're going to do this. I say come together, and not even in the building, come together somewhere to just be together. And so that's the big thing we learned. Like we would do these camps and we try to pack it with all these educational things. And we backed off of that a lot to where that's only half. Oops. What happened there? There we go. Okay. So that's what I would suggest. There are tons of tips in there. Just try them. Try multiple ones. There is not going to be one single one. But what I would focus on is try to maximize that time together as just take all the work stuff out of it. Don't try to sometimes we would do a team building activity. It's supposed to have a you see Timmy moment. At the end of Lassie, there was you see Timmy. Here's the lesson we learned today. No, just do it for fun because that's the real team building we want. All right, we probably got a couple more questions. I think we had one here.
Yeah, I think since we've gone remote.
I love this Murray Povich thing we're doing.
I think
The results are in. It is not your son.
I think we've struggled with estimations now.
Okay, estimations.
Yeah.
So
As remote.
okay. Well, you're not going to like this answer either. So when I came to Ackland, one of the things they said is that they were doing Fibonacci. They were, the Scrum, story points, Fibonacci sequence, the whole thing. And we're saying we're really struggling with this. Things are often bigger than we think. Da, da, da. And they said, well, how are you going to improve estimation? I said, we're just going to stop doing it. Now, we didn't really stop doing it, but I put less focus on that and more focus on breaking down stories and value. That's, and I don't want to get on a tangent. Why do we keep losing stuff? What's going on here? Technology's great until it's not. Anyway, the big thing I have with estimates and just even with a remote team is just number one, it's all going to become hours. This big fight against hours, I get it, but it's not against hours, it's against estimates and plans are not the same thing. If you can separate that, that's the big thing to separate. Don't worry about obfuscating because that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to fool other people. What is it? It's a story point. What's a story point? Don't worry about it. But that's where, so I had a project manager who came to me, a product manager came to me at another company and said, oh, I want actuals versus estimates. And I'm like, I am not giving you that. That is a high capacity magazine. Sure, you could use it for good, but most likely you're going to use it for something bad. I'm not giving you that. The velocity the team has, that's what you're going to see. And you don't dictate velocity. You don't dictate how speed is. Like if I said, hey, let's all go and run a mile, and you need to run a mile in 3 minutes. I don't get to say that. Because it ain't going to happen. Well, at least I don't know you. It ain't going to happen with me. You observe it. It's like, oh, there's velocity hopping through the forest. And so that gets into a whole metrics thing that, talk to me later and I'll send you some links to some stuff I do on metrics, which is about metrics are about not about dictating and enforcing, they're about observing and influencing behavior. And so that's probably a deeper discussion, but that's what I did is I said, let's not worry about estimates because we're trying to estimate things that are big, bulky, undefined. Let's get really good at making really small, thin stories that are of value and you can understand them. If you do that, then there's a lot of things that break at the end that are because you don't do that well. So visual story slicing is a big thing I love. User personas and goals is one of the things I use. So those are things I would talk about. And if we connect later, I'll send you some resources on that. All right, do we have a couple more? Oh, I think we're wrapping up. So let me just wrap up, and then I'm still going to stick around.
So my question is, what are your thoughts on, you talked about organization structure and whatnot. There are some organizations that have Scrum Masters, product owners, and Kim working for it, and then development is just side. And there is still a conversation around industry in the Scrum area that Scrum Masters is supposed to be part of the development team, in the feature teams, and there is struggle between
Yep.
two organizations. What are your thoughts?
So the question to repeat for everybody online is about when you have teams that are almost separate departments, then you're not a team. A team is a people that are together and for a long running and things like that. So that's why we are the Spotify model. And the Spotify model doesn't work for anybody. And don't say Spotify is not an agile model. I didn't say it was an agile model. It's an organizational model, which makes a lot of other things easier. And it's not new. It's a matrix model. They just had some cool names, tribes and squads. And it's been around. So we did the matrix model specifically, and I've done it at a place where we organically did it in a large healthcare company that had hardware and software. So when people say, you can't do this in regulation and with hardware, absolutely you can. I did it. But then I took that to Lean Kit. And I thought it would go great there because this is a company that all they are is lean and Kanban. And it didn't work really well there. It just didn't fit their culture. It fit us really well. And it is about the team. I am building my company about the delivery of value, not about capacity. That's the thing. That, you know, when you try to do that capacity thing where like we talked about, sharing you around with everybody to get the most out of you, you're optimizing the individual and not the whole. And that's the look busy Jesus is coming approach to project management. So, you know, you can't get away from some organizations that are like that. I worked at a company that made tires. I won't say the name of it, but it wouldn't be really hard to figure it out. And they've made tires for over 100 years. And so I would be kind of coach some guy, and he goes, listen, son, I've been doing this for over 100 years, and we do it this way, and we're doing great. They didn't have a CIO until like probably a decade ago. Technology was not their first thing. And so when you try to bring technology in, it is seen as kind of the, I guess I got to do that to keep up with other people. But that organization was built for something else. It was built for delivering tires, not built for delivering software or things like that. But the software and things like that goes along with tires. It's how it builds your product. It's how you do sales. So it's a hard thing to convince people to do. And the same advice I gave to him is if you can't do it, then the best thing you can do as a product owner or scrum master is metrics. Metrics and knowing how much your team costs, where things get stuck, knowing where waste is, and this is more lean than anything else, and you can put that on top of anything. Showing that, reflecting that back to leadership, saying the impact of the decisions you're making. So leadership's going to come and say, I want to shoot myself in the foot. And you go, that's a bad idea. And they go, but I really want to shoot myself in the foot. I don't think you should blam. And they go, ow, my foot hurts. And okay, because you shot yourself in the foot. And that's what happens when you do that. So it is an organizational model. It's not new. But if you can't move to that, the best thing you can do is get some metrics to show the impact of not doing that. And to try to convince people. There's a lot of good exercises out there that kind of show this idea of limiting work in progress, of dedicated teams and things like that, that actually gets more work done. Not more productivity of, there's a lot of motion. I did a lot of things today. What'd you actually deliver? Nothing. I did a lot of stuff. There's a lot of meetings, and I did a lot of this. Okay, but what did you move the needle on? Because Agile is not the thing. Agile is the thing that gets you to the thing, which is we're in a business. So that would be my advice there. All right, just to wrap up, and I will stick around and answer more questions. We will talk more about more stuff. So like I said, be realistic and pragmatic about why you're being remote. I know us developers like to go, remote work is the best work in the world and it's best for everybody. No, it's not. You know, do you want a remote doctor? Do you want a remote airplane? You know, no. You know, there's some work that has to be there. Knowledge work, it can be. And it's good for cooperative work. It's not always great for collaborative work. You can make it work, but I'm always trading something off. Don't try to tell me. It's like when people would tell me TDD, I can be faster at TDD. No, you can't. It's faster in the long run, absolutely, because there's good things about it. But you're writing more lines of code than if you didn't do it. You can't tell me that is faster in the actual productivity part of doing that thing. But it gives me other benefits that I'm willing to sacrifice for that. That's what you should sell. Sell the right thing. Be pragmatic about it. Put it in your strategy. It needs to be part of your strategy. If you are just dipping your toe in there, it's always going to feel ham-fisted. It's always going to be butting up against the thing you want to revert to all the time. Focus on outcomes. Let them be autonomous. That gets rid of a lot of the micromanaging. It gets rid of a lot of, what are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? Where were you today? Did you make it that time? Did I get my stuff done? Yeah. Is my client happy? Yeah. My team's happy? Yeah. Why are you bothering me? Get together when it makes sense. We still like to be together. You know, I've worked with these teams, and I worked with them for years and never saw them, and I went to Honduras and met them, and I was so happy. It was just, it just filled my heart to meet the people. We bring them up to Nashville all the time. We have a special little house that we do, Airbnb, that is just miraculously, we didn't know this, painted the same Ackland colors. And it fits about, you can get about 10 people in there. So when we bring people in, we don't get individual room, we put them all in this place. And there's a lot of social, there's a lot of things, everything is built towards interact with your people when we're together as much as possible, because that nugget of time is so good. And then lastly, trust your teams. Everything else, if you do that, all this other stuff should fall in place. Trust your teams. You hired smart people. If I hired smart people and then I keep questioning them, then they don't feel trusted, and they're not going to do that best work. So again, you'll notice that we didn't talk about tactics, and a lot of stuff I talked about was just things you should do for a team, period. And yeah, because if you do these things just period, you're establishing a culture of long-running teams that you trust, and then it doesn't matter where they are. And that's why they can be anywhere. All right, so I will wrap it up. We can wrap things in a nice bow, and if you need to leave, you can leave. If you want to sit around and talk, I'm also at our booth all day, so if you want to talk there, I'm more than happy to. Here's my email. Feel free to email me. Love you to connect with me on LinkedIn. I don't really do a lot on Twitter. I mean, if you want to see what my dog did and what I ate for lunch, sure. If you want to see my O'Reilly stuff, o'reilly.tommynorman.com. This is my work, Ackland Avenue. A lot of everything you heard here is stuff we're doing there. If that interests you and you need custom software development, you like the cut of our jib, talk to us there. I also do webinars. I'm doing one on Friday, which is the ROI one. Getting the most ROI out of your product backlog. We're going to talk about prioritization, backlog maturity models, et cetera, et cetera. So with that, I want to thank all of you for spending your morning with me. Thanks, everybody.